Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to everyone. So today, thank you for being with me on this live session. Today I'm going to answer 3 questions to help postgraduate students and early researchers in writing their journal articles. Those 3 questions were asked to me during my live session previously, last few months, when I was giving a webinar on how to kickstart writing your journal article. So those 3 questions for today is, what are example of materials that can be published from a thesis? Question number 2, how long does it take to write a journal manuscript? And question number 3, which one to write first, journal article or thesis? Alright, before we start answering these questions, I would hope that you can share this live session to all your friends which you think would benefit from this session. And if you find any notes which is useful to you during this live session, you can jot them down in the comment section so that we can all share information and you can remember better. Alright. Just without further ado, I will answer the first question. What are example of materials which can be published from a thesis? You might be wondering, what are other things that you can publish from a thesis besides your findings? So there are many options for you to publish the materials from your thesis. For example, the main thing that we know is we publish results from our thesis. We publish findings from our thesis. And these findings, these results can be published in many forms in a journal. First, you can submit it in the form of short reports or letters, or you can submit original research articles, which is usually longer compared to short reports and letters. In a short reports and letters, normally you would be reporting a breakthrough in your research, which you think would benefit others, and you would like to quickly publish it before other people publish it. You can write a short report or letters on some of the important findings from your study, but it is not the full report yet. The full report, you can submit it in the form of original research article, which is longer compared to the short reports. Then you can publish also results and findings from your thesis in the form of case studies. For example, clinical case studies. This is particularly in medicine field. For example, you want to report a previously unknown pathologist, and you want other people in your field to know what could possibly happen in a patient, or in a phenomenon happening in your, for example, in a disease. Alright, and another thing that you can publish from your results is that not only the full paper or the original research article, short report, and case studies, but you can also publish your full data. For example, if you are taking data from a location, for example, water quality data from a particular location, for example, in Sarawak River or in Baram River, which is very useful for other researchers who wants to embark in studies in this area. So you can publish your extra data which you cannot fit into the original research article, your extra data, as data X. I will also share with you all this information later on data X. Alright, and then aside from publishing your results, you can also publish your literature review. But first, this literature review must be converted first to a review paper. All right. Most of the time, people spend more than 2 months, minimum 2 months for doing the literature review. Whether you are doing your master's study or your PhD, you are going to spend a lot of time doing the literature review. So why not publish them? Because when you publish your literature review in the form of a review paper, you are actually helping other postgraduate students or early researchers in the field for them to know the advancement and the current situation and current research in your field. All right. So this could be one motivation for you to publish your literature review. Okay. And then the third thing that you can publish from your thesis is methodology. For methodology, this is specifically if you have a new methodology which you develop from your study, or a new test, or a new procedures, or merely an advancement or an improvement from previous methods. For example, previously, when you do pyrolysis, for example, it would take you 2 hours, 3 hours, but using your method, you can improve the method and shorten the processing time for only 2 minutes, for example. This kind of methodology can be published, and this can be published without your results, because you are sharing with others how you create or you develop this method to improve the processes. Okay. This method must be new or better from the existing method. All right. Okay. I would like also to share the emerging trends in publishing materials in journals. Okay. So they are things that previously most of us will just abandon them. Without publishing them. We keep them because we don't know where to publish them. Actually, now you can publish your research data, as I have been mentioning just now about extra data that you have from your thesis, which you don't think can be fit into your original research paper, and previously people put it as supplementary data, but now you can publish it on its own as data X. For example, Elsevier, which is a publisher in a journal publisher, they have an option for you to publish your materials. For example, your extra data, they call it data in brief or data X, and you can also publish your software on its own. For example, if you develop an application or you develop any software, you can publish the software. They call it software X, the journal which you can publish it. And you can also publish your materials and also your methods. For example, the code that you develop, the methods that you improve, this one can also be published. In Elsevier, they call it data in brief or software X or hardware X or method X. All right, you can help others to get this information by typing them also in the comment. I would repeat this: data in brief, software X, hardware X, method X. So all the data that you have, whether you have your research data from water quality studies or any big data, or you have the software that you develop, coding, the methods that you improve, everything can be published on its own. Okay, this is citable articles, so don't worry. Okay, they are counted as journal publications. All right, thank you. That one is the answer for my for question 1, and now I would like to share the answers for question 2. How long does it take to write a journal manuscript? All right, it can take 1 day or it can take forever. Alright, it can take one day if you really focus on it, and if you already have all the data with you, just a matter of polishing your articles. But it can take years, it can take forever if you are not focused in writing the journal manuscript. But as a rule of thumb, usually we have 4 stages in writing a journal article. The first stage, if you notice, is that we have to plan the manuscript flow. Okay, the first thing that you have to do when you want to submit a journal article is you have to plan the manuscript flow. What are some of the things that you have to consider when you plan your writing or you plan your manuscript? First is your targeted journal. You have to write based on the audience and based on the scope of your targeted journal. Second, what are the research question and research objective that you want to answer in this paper, in this article? So based on these research objectives, research questions, you have to plan the flow of your manuscript by writing an outline of your manuscript. Alright, the second stage after you plan the flow of your manuscript is to gather the materials you need based on the flow that you have created just now. So gathering materials, what I mean here is including the references, including converting your data into figures, tables, which is easy to read. This is the process of gathering the materials. Before I forgot, when you plan just now, you might want to take 5 hours to focus to plan your manuscript. And when you gather the materials, you might take up to 15 hours. For example, you want to make sure that your data is fully analyzed. You take the relevant data only and the relevant figures, for example. And you have pilot articles to help you to maneuver your manuscript writing, to help you as a guideline in your manuscript writing. So this would take about 15 hours if you really focus on it. So 15 hours, if you would like to chunk them into smaller goals, maybe you spend 5 hours, 5 hours, and 5 hours to really focus on gathering your materials. Then the third step, after you plan, you gather your materials, is to write the manuscript. Normally, no matter what field you are going to have the same flow of manuscript. It's IMRAD. It's called IMRAD. You have the introduction, methodology, RAD is results and discussion. It's the same flow. So you might want to put all the materials that you gathered just now into their respective section. Which one is in the introduction section, methodology section, results and discussion sections. I would recommend that you write the results and discussion section first, because you already know what is the research question and research objectives that you want to answer in this particular manuscript. So you spend about 10 hours to really focus on writing the results and discussion, because you already spend some time to gather and also analyze your data and also convert them into a proper figures and tables. All right. So you spend 10 hours to write the results and discussion. You might want to chunk this into smaller goals. For example, if you have 5 sections in results and discussion, you might want to write them section by section. Maybe you spend 2 hours or 1 hour on a section, and then you move to another one. Then another way to do it is by writing your methodology first. Some people, they like to write the most difficult part first, and some people, they like to write the easiest part first. That depends on you. Alright, but if you write methodology, it's the easiest part to write, because you already have the methodology outlined in your proposal. Normally, when you already go to the lab to do your work, or you go to the field to get your samples, you already have methodology written in your proposal. So it's quite easy to do that. If you like to do the easy things first, you can start with methodology. So spend about no more than 5 hours on your methodology, and if you have extra time, you allocate that time for you to write other things such as abstract and conclusion later on. Okay, and after that, you can write your introduction. The introduction part is the most difficult one compared to results and discussion and methodology. So I would recommend that the introduction part be written last, but again, this is depending on your preferences. If you like to write the introduction first, then you can do it. Okay, no problem. After you have spent 10 hours on result and discussion, 5 hours on methodology, 5 hours on the introduction, and if you have extra time from methodology, you can use it to write the abstract and also the conclusion. You leave the manuscript as it is because you already finished the draft of. You leave it first for at least 3 days. You rest the manuscript. I always call it as manuscript rest. And it's actually not the manuscript is resting, it's your eyes are resting. Because if you try to do the next stage right after you finish your first draft, it's not going to be very effective. Alright? The next step or the fourth step is for you to edit your article. After you rest your manuscript for 3 days minimum, don't rest it for more than 5 days, or else you will be leaving the articles. You will abandon the articles because you rest it for too long. Okay, let's take 3 days. Okay, 3 or 4 days maximum, and then you move to the next stage, which is editing and proofreading. This is very important step. You don't want any writing error, grammatical error, or any silly sentence structure or terms that used in your manuscript. We want it to be as flawless as possible, as perfect as possible. So this is where you do you utilize your perfectionism in writing. There is no use for you to do the writing and editing at the same time. You have to write the paper quickly, and then later on you can edit it and scrutinize your own paper. You can take about 20 hours to do that. Okay, you check one by one the formatting, the sentence structure, the spelling, the grammar, the usage of English. You don't want to mix the usage of English, UK English and US English. You have to see which journal you are sending your manuscript. So overall, it takes 60 hours for you to complete a manuscript. So it depends on you. You want to put the 60 hours in 1 week, or you want to put in 2 weeks, you want to put it in 4 weeks. It depends on you. But overall, 60 hours is maximum time that you need to write a manuscript. Considering that you already have all your data. Okay? Alright, I hope the answer for question 2 is clear for you. If you have any other questions, just leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer it in the next live session. Alright? Now we are moving to question number 3. Which one to write first, journal article or thesis? This question may come from a postgraduate students, because when it comes to thesis writing, normally it is a concern of postgraduate students. In the context of postgraduate students, it is worth for you to do the article writing and along the way of your studies. For example, I would always recommend my students or any students that comes to me for advice and coaching, please try to work on your experiments, on your data collection based on the objective or your research question. You work on it step by step, one by one. You work on RQ1 first or objective 1 first, and then you work on the second one after you finish writing the results, you finish analyzing the results of objective 1. So, this is the practice that I did during my PhD study based on the advice of one of my supervisory committee. He said to me that when you have finished the experiments for your objective 1, please stop to think. What he meant by stop to think is for you to write, analyze your results and write a paper on the results that you get for the first objective. Why we want to do this? Because when we do this early, right after we finish the experiment, the data is still fresh and we are still, in the mood of this objective. So we try to write it, and of course we are reading materials related to these objectives. Alright, so when you analyze your data, you write a paper about it, then you realize which part of the paper is missing. Normally you would try to benchmark your manuscript to another similar manuscript which has been published in your targeted journal. Of course, you will be doing a novel thing, a new thing compared to the previous studies, but always we have a paper that we can rely on for us to see the style of writing and so on, the type of data that they have. So when you do this writing in the earlier part, if you realize that you have a missing data or a missing points or an unanswered questions in your paper, in your manuscript, in your discussion, you can always go back and do the additional experiments, do the data collection that you need to complete this paper. This is better than realizing the missing data or the missing points at the end of your study. So I would say that writing a journal article as you go along your postgraduate study journey is worth to do it because it helps you to think about the flow of your own thesis. Another thing, you will get precious review from the reviewers on your work. So you will know which part to improve, which additional experiments you need. So this is a very priceless thing to have during your postgraduate studies. So my recommendation is that you write your journal article as you go along the postgraduate studies. Alright, so I think that's about it for today's live session. I hope to see you again next Friday. Inshallah, I will be doing live every Friday night, 9 p.m. to 9:20 p.m. And I hope that the things that I have shared today benefit you, and if you think this would be useful to somebody else you know, you can hit the share button, and you can also share the link to this FB Live to your friends. Thank you very much for being with me tonight. See you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good night.